Welcome our dear guest live here in the studio, Dr. Mervat Madkour, Professor of Political Economy of the Middle East Research and Development. Thank you very much for being with us, ma'am.
Thanks to you, Nan.
And we are going to start immediately from Al-Ahram, where we read, Al-Sisi approves the establishment of creating a Supreme Council for Investment, which would be headed by the President himself. President Al-Sisi approved the proposal submitted by Minister of Investment Dalia Khorshid to establish this council in a meeting which also involved the Prime Minister, Engineer Sharif Ismail. Ma'am, regarding this issue of Council of Investment, it also included the one-stop shop system. It also included reviewing the investment policies and plans we have. But to have the President as also the head of this Supreme Council of Investment, meaning that once again we need the President to be doing everything on his own or by himself, or this is a must in this very critical period to have someone who is not going to hesitate, who is not going to have a shaky hand to sign whenever it comes to something which is going to benefit Egypt. Which is which, in your opinion?
Let me tell you one thing. There is, of course, a world recession, undeniably. Okay, it doesn't really touch upon Egypt alone.
Till the moment.
Exactly. And it's getting even worse with the problem in the
Britain
EU,
or Brexit.
The Brexit problem, as you know, and in all our viewers, I'm sure they have heard of it. But the problem with Egypt is that we are trying to revive the economy. Okay, we are trying to give a push, and not just any push, a real push. Why? Because you've seen so much money has been invested in the infrastructure of Egypt. Okay, from the construction, of course, of the Suez Canal, which did not repay a lot as was expected, to even creating, you know, houses or taking really into consideration housing problems for the homeless people, or the ones that have been living in conditions that are below.
In slums or shanty towns.
Exactly, exactly. But these investments would have gone in vain unless they are being used. Certainly we will feel how these people who have been collected from slums or, as you said, from very poor areas, as a matter of fact, and are living now in conditions which are more humane. Okay, this will reflect itself in what? In their performance. In their performance, whether it be
in their sense of belonging first.
Definitely.
Yes, first.
That's the most important issue, because people, youngsters in the past, used to say, we don't feel the sense of belonging. Nevertheless, okay, you've heard about the law of investment, which we have not seen yet, right? It has been...
Ma'am, the laws is another issue, because ratifying 342 laws by the parliament, this is another story.
The problem is, Nermeen, the point is that I want to make here, is that we've had a good investment law. But because we rejected, and there was a huge resentment of anything that was of the era of Mubarak, we just did away with it. And we were never able to get a solid law. Why is the law important for a foreign investor? Even the local one. Okay, you have to know
regulations, ma'am.
The rules.
The rules. How will
I be
so as we do have a lot of other banners, let me ask you about this yes or no question.
Yes.
How do you see the timing of this Supreme Council? It's the best timing now, or it was
late? It should have been done
before. From Al-Ahram, we continue to read. We do have the coming 3 banners from different newspapers about the official visit of our top diplomat, Sameh Shukri, to Iraq. A message from Al-Sisi to Al-Abbadi that was conveyed by Shukri. Iraqi army launches an operation, this is what was going on the ground, to regain control over North Ramadi. Turkish raids destroy 27 sites for the separatists. The same issue is tackled in Al-Masri Al-Yawm, page 3, where we read, The foreign ministry tackles facing Daesh with Iraq. Foreign Minister Shukri arrived in the Iraqi capital, Baghdad, for a one-day visit to discuss bilateral ties and issues of mutual concern. Still with the same issue, but this time from اليوم السابع, where we continue to read from page 4 the details of Shukri's surprise visit to Iraq. The Iraqi foreign minister calls on Egypt to ease the measures of the visas of the entry of Iraqis to visit the country. The top diplomat meets also with Iraqi counterpart Ibrahim al-Jafari and with also the Iraqi parliamentary speaker. Ma'am, I don't know why it's a surprise visit, or it's considered a surprise visit. To whom?
To everybody.
Tell you something. He was there, of course, to meet with the high-ranking and top officials, but also to inaugurate or to open the new headquarters of the Egyptian embassy in Baghdad.
But it wasn't expected to be at that high level, to be honest.
Okay.
Okay. But definitely, if you remember, at the time of the Kuwait-Iraqi war and the invasion of Iraq into Kuwait, many Egyptians have lost their money.
Sure.
Those who have been working. Some of them have been killed and never compensated by the Iraqi government. So there are some hanging problems between the two countries. However, what really strikes me is the Turkish,
this was my coming question, to move from diplomacy to what was going on the ground.
On the ground.
Or to be accurate, what is going on. Turkish raids destroyed 27 sites for the separatists. Here, I'm not going to say about, or I'm not going to speak about the separatists. I'm speaking about the sovereignty of a nation. How do you see this intervention?
What do you think of Turkey has been doing all the past
I am here the one
years?
to ask questions, ma'am.
Okay.
You answer your question.
No, I pose and answer it, okay? Yeah. Erdogan has been really playing a very dirty role in the region for a very long time. And is it our feeling of this dirty role, which I label as really dirty, because here in Egypt, he has been supporting also those whom we now label as being traitors.
Yeah.
Okay? So, Turkey is wherever there is a problem that it can fuel it and then create a problem for a nation so that to bring it down or topple a regime. This has been its policy all the years past few years. And it doesn't really, whether they are separatists, people who are really looking for something new, something fruitful. I don't think at this particular moment of time, anybody who thinks that democracy, and I don't know, democracy is never given, Nermeen. It's earned. The people earn a democracy. What I can give you, I can take from you anytime I wish.
Yeah.
So it's not granted, neither from inside by a president or from the outside world by, we've seen the claims of the United States when it came to Iraq.
Yeah.
It was going to spread democracy, while in fact it spread slavery, to which of course the United States, it's okay with it.
But you know, man, they used this case in a very marvelous way when it comes to their elections, to the presidential elections.
Of course, it's enough to see one like Trump.
Yeah.
Okay, it's enough. That's what the United States is used to. It's slavery.
By the way,
wasn't it in the South? Wasn't the civil war in the United States for this?
If you permit me, ma'am, to say so, the American administration is all the time generating the same the faces of the same coin. George Bush II is Barack Obama, is Hillary Clinton, is
exactly.
Trump.
You know what I always tell my students, okay, that the United States, no matter who is the president, whether it be Republican or a Democrat, this is just a matter of words. The Democrat gives the Middle East what I call poison, but with a smiling face. while the Republicans gives us the poison or destruction, well, it is really showing us their ugly teeth.
Let's speak about real men.
Okay.
From Al-Ahram, we read, the National Security Force terrorist operation in Sinai, arresting 2 terrorist elements and discovering 2 cars carrying weapons in a farm between Sharqiyya and Ismailiyya, a painful strike for the terrorism hideouts in Sinai. Security apparatus discover cargoes of weapons and arrest terrorists in a farm between Sharqiyya and Ismailiyya. All what we can say, a tip of a hat, man, for all what you are doing for us, because you are not only protecting the Egyptians, you are protecting the whole nation. Taking you, ma'am, to Al-Masri Al-Yawm, where we read from its front page, the black box of the plane is intact. The investigation commission in the disaster of the plane says the black box was not damaged. Ma'am, I don't know why I look at this issue not only as an accident. It's an incident which delivered a lot of messages. On top of which, our relations with our allies, and France is on top of them, is not going to be affected. Number 2, transparency in every and each detail of the goings, the surroundings. We are going to say everything. And we are here in the state media are keen to deliver this message all the time. How do you see these messages after the incident or the tragedy?
Well, I wouldn't, yes, you're perfectly right. It should be called a tragedy. And we've heard confusing, analysis of what really has taken place. But as you said, yes, there is a transparency, and yes, it would not, as what happened with the Russians or the Italians in the case of Regini happened with regard to nation-to-nation relationship. Certainly, France has much more understanding. But mind you, France, whoever will be responsible, will have to pay damages and punities, of course, for those who have lost their lives on this particular airplane. Let's hope that the voice recorder or the data recorder that has been so far, so far analyzed, shows that there was a smoke behind the cockpit, in the toilet behind the cockpit, which is usually not used by the passengers. It is used by the crew and the captain and the cabin crew itself. So let's hope that it wasn't, a sabotage or whatever it was.
Whatever it was is going to be revealed, ma'am.
I'm sure. I'm sure, because both have the good intentions, Nermeen. Both want really to tell the public what really happened.
Moving from good intentions to bad intentions, with Al-Masri Al-Yawm speaking about Israel surrounding Hebron or Al-Khalil and shelling Gaza. Washington promises an unprecedented aid. Netanyahu prepares to visit 4 Nile Basin countries. And for me, this is much more important.
Well, let me
report about the Israeli issue, Ghada? Okay, we are going to go to this very detailed and comprehensive report, and we're going to come back. Just stay tuned.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to make his first trip as premier to Africa, seeking new trade partners. Netanyahu is the first sitting Israeli Prime Minister to travel to Africa since Yitzhak Rabin visited Casablanca in 1994. Netanyahu is expected to visit Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia, and Rwanda. Israel's cabinet approved a proposal on June 25th to open offices of Israel's Agency for International Development in the 4 countries. Netanyahu told the cabinet that his visit is part of a major effort in their part to return to Africa in a big way. Netanyahu's office said the trip comes at a time when Israel is launching a $13 million aid package to strengthen economic ties and cooperation with African countries. It added that Israel would also provide African states with training in domestic security and health. Netanyahu has publicly accepted an invitation from Kenyan President Kenyatta. Israel's dealings with Africa currently constitutes only 2% of its foreign trade, leaving plenty of room for growth. However, it also sees African countries as potential allies, notably at the United Nations and other international bodies, where it is condemned over its occupation of the West Bank and blockade of the Gaza Strip.
Welcome back. Ma'am, regarding this timing of the visit of Netanyahu to 4 Nile Basin countries, if you want to elaborate on this.
Well, it's so apparent, of course. But Mr. Netanyahu is always, pretending as if he's the innocent guy going, to spread love and good relationships, ships actually, because they are 4. But definitely his bad intentions we can see.
And let's wait and see. To the massacre which took place in the heart of Dhaka, Daesh slaughters 20 foreigners in Bangladesh.
Well,
we have more details.
Bangladesh began observing 2 days of national mourning on Sunday after 20 hostages were slaughtered at a restaurant packed with foreigners in a terrifying escalation of a campaign of attacks by extremists. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina decreed the mourning period as she vowed to drag Bangladesh back from the brink, warning of a concentrated bid to turn one of the world's most populous nations into a failed state. Amid mass condemnation of the killings in Dhaka, whose victims included 18 foreigners, the Daesh terrorist group said it had targeted a gathering on Friday night at a Western-style cafe, as well as the 20 slain hostages whose bodies were found amid pools of blood after commandos stormed the cafe to end the siege. 2 policemen were also shot dead in a fierce gun battle at its outset. 6 gunmen were shot dead by the commandos at the final stages of the siege at the Holy Artisan Bakery Cafe, but one of the hostage takers was taken alive and was being interrogated by Bangladesh intelligence. Hasina's government has previously blamed a string of deadly attacks against religious minorities and foreigners on domestic opponents. However, the latest will heighten fears that Daesh's reach is spreading. The premier said the people behind the attacks were trying to ruin Bangladesh, a mainly Muslim nation of 160 million people. Flags were being flown at half-mast in government offices and at other sites across the country, while funerals of the 2 Bangladesh victims were expected to be held. UN Chief Ban Ki-moon was among those who expressed outrage, stressing the need to intensify regional and international efforts to prevent and combat terrorism.
Unfortunately, you are running out of time, but ma'am, is it going to continue? I mean, the terror attacks? A yes or no question.
Of course.
Dr. Mervat, thank you very much for your input, ma'am. See you next week, inshallah. Happy Eid.
Happy Eid to you and to all our viewers and, of course, to our crew members.
Thank you, ma'am. Right after the short break, we are going to be back with more. Stay tuned only on Nile TV International.